Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the first episode of Graph Hunter, the Genesis idea. Glad to have you all with us today. Let us dive in here. First, a little bit about who you're going to hear from today. My name is Corey Summers. I'm CMO at ArangoDB. I've been in high-tech sales and marketing for over 25 years now, and excited to be with ArangoDB, working on a very exciting area, even more so now with how graph databases are being leveraged for GenAI or empowering GenAI in a very unique way, as we will see today. Martin?
Hello, everybody. My name is Martin Kovar, and I'm a product manager in Cogniware. I have more than 5 years experience with ArangoDB, and today I'm happy to share with you how we are leveraging this technology in our product suite.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. And we have Marketa with us, also from Cogniware. Hi, Marketa.
Hello, everyone. I'm also from Cogniware, and I'm here from the marketing side. So I'll be just watching as you.
And then we have Michael Burleson, our solution architect, who has increasing experience in our ML products, our GenAI products. And so he'll be along to answer more technical questions, as I hope you will have for us today. All right, let's talk about what we are going to get into on the first episode of Graph Hunter, the Genesis idea. We will first level set with you about who is Cogniware, also ArangoDB's kind of latest strategy in terms of ML and GenAI and the direction we're going there. We'll then get into Argos and understand what that application is, what its purpose is, who the users of that application are, and also how it's going to, then leverage, or how does it leverage ArangoDB in a very unique way? What are the unique capacities of ArangoDB that empower Argos? The use case you're going to see is investigations and applicability to law enforcement and financial fraud and things like that, but it's also hopefully going to be shown how that's extensible and applicable to many of the use cases that you may have, whether that's supply chain optimization, fraud detection, network asset management, retail, customer 360, whatever it is, all of this applies 100%. And we'll kind of point that out as we go, where those connection points are. And then we're really going to talk about the merging of graph databases with GenAI and LLMs and why that marriage is so powerful. We've talked about that on past webinars, and it's certainly a hot topic today, but it's one that we're really going to dive into within the context of Argos. So we're going to be able to really see how that works, how that marriage works in a real world situation with real world examples, not just theory, but practice in the context of Argos. Now, we will be doing Q&A as we go and at the end, so please use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature. Submit your questions, and we have Michael here who can field those as we go, or I may point them out, but please do provide your questions via Q&A as we go. All right, first let's kind of level set on the ArangoDB universe. Where are we with that? And then we can get into Cogniware's side. So, this is the foundation of the ArangoDB universe, if you will, our multi-model graph database. We've talked a lot about how that multi-model capability is so critical. It is, if you visit our website and you go to our case studies, you will see that in 90% of those dozens of case studies, this was the number one deciding factor in choosing ArangoDB was the multi-model. And we're going to see today how that plays out explicitly and specifically how that plays out within Argos. So that is the foundation. And that applies, as we said, to all these different use cases and solutions that are that you've got out there in your everyday lives, right? What are the real world business challenges? And this is kind of the progressively evolving or progressively more complex set of capabilities that we're bringing to market. The graph query is where it all starts, traversing that knowledge graph, graph traversals. But then you layer on some powerful graph analytics that can then prepare your data for doing graph ML, especially in the predictive arena. So predicting things before they occur, very powerful capability. And then on top of that, how do you expose the results of that in a way that's powerful with LLMs, natural language? And we're going to see an example of that. Those kind of three on the right side there, that is what's included in our new offering, the Data Science Suite, which gives you all these more advanced capabilities on top of your existing ArangoDB implementation. And then we do have a new product that we brought to market just recently. It's called the ArangoDB Visualizer, and this is where you want just easy access, visual access to your graph, powerful graph, visual traversal and analysis. What you're going to see today with Argos is that on steroids, right? That's where they've built a bespoke application for a particular use case. All right, so that's kind of the ArangoDB universe. Let me now get into or pass over to Martin to kind of introduce us to Cogniware.
Thank you, Corey. So let me tell you a few words about our company. So Cogniware is a company from Prague, Czech Republic. Our main mission is to innovate the digital investigation process and data analytics using the right technology. We do this by providing software solutions based on our product called Argos and related consultation services. Over the 10 years on the market, from 2014, we gained some invaluable know-how on more than 100 projects worldwide. Mostly these projects were around the field of law enforcement, intelligence, prison facilities, military, and enterprise risk and security departments. So this is in general what our company is specializing.
And Martin, when you think about, the focus today, the example today will be intelligence and government, but this applies, some of your customers are doing more on the financial side, or what are some of the other example use cases?
It actually spans too many domains. Of course, the financial one is one of the most critical, but investigation happen in commercial sector as well, not only in the government domain. When we talk about investigation, we mainly mean a systematic process of collecting the data, analyzing the data, to uncover facts and some crucial information, establish some evidence from these information, draw conclusions about a specific matter or event, and share this across the organization. Now, these investigations might be, of course, like the criminal investigation when there is a murder or theft, but there might be some commercial use cases which might be very interesting for you. Most typical one in the financial sector, of course, is Know Your Customer, KYC, in banks and insurance companies, where we can focus on understanding client relationships and behavior from wider perspective. Let's say incorporating the graph analytics and the link analysis underneath. We have also commercial use cases in supply chain management, where we detect frauds in relation to collusion or corruption, some thefts, supplier vettings, some impact analysis. So how insufficiency of one product can somehow impact your business. We have also very nice use case from the security perspective, and that is conflict of interest. So large companies usually issue some tenders, and those tenders are evaluated by internal board members or purchase committee members. And we are making sure that those people are not in conflict of interest by being somehow in relation to companies that are participating in those tenders. So what we are doing, we are analyzing relationships of different subjects, no matter whether this is person, employee, criminal, and we are trying to look at the broader behavior of that person and associations of that person.
Yeah, thanks for that detail. And Martin, as we'll see, well, I think it's clear knowledge graph is the best way to uncover those relationships. And then as we'll see, the LLMs and the GenAI piece, the best way, the evolving way to access that, the results of that analytics. What are some of the challenges you've seen as you move from other technologies over to graph?
Yeah, I think 5 of them are the most obvious one and the most common. First of all, we are dealing with data overload. The diversity of the data and volumes of the data are unprecedented. It is impossible for people to analyze data manually nowadays. New information are created every second in huge volumes, in any shape that you can imagine, in any source that you can imagine. Specifically, when we are talking about law enforcement or intelligence domains, we need to count with the, let's say, unstructured and structured world together. So there are videos from CCTV cameras, there are audio recordings, there are textual documents that we need to somehow analyze and find the crucial information in there. There are internal data sources, there are external data sources. All of them might have different structure, different types of information, and there's a huge number of these data sources nowadays. It might be government registries, it might be internal knowledge bases, etc. So this is one of the most key aspects, to be able to have the technology that can ingest those data and that can scale to those terabytes, petabytes volumes of data, and that can actually run some queries on top of that large volumes of data. So that's the first one. Second one is that most of these data are fragmented in various different sources, which are uncorrelated. Basically, you have a set of information in one place, completely different set of information, different place, and our job is to collect, centralize, and make sure that these correlate to each other, and that can expand on the behavior, for example, of one person. Not only they are fragmented, but they make the best sense if they are working together and linked together, because the behavior of the person is quite sophisticated and the connections are buried inside a different domains or different types of databases. So to give you some example, we have a vehicle registry, we have a land registry, we have a financial database of commercial companies, then we have, for example, employee behavior, and we need to somehow make them play together. So this is another a huge topic that we need to work to be able to use graph. Next one is the security. Obviously, we are dealing with very sensitive data, and we need to protect the data. And we need to make sure that there is no unauthorized access to these data. So this is exactly what we need from the technology. We need to protect the data, and especially we need to encrypt the data when they are addressed, and we need to encrypt the network traffic, and then we need to apply some security permissions and security policies, which may be dynamic. They may change every second, so we need to have technology that can support that. And of course, what is the most important for me is the evolving threats. Nobody behavior stays the same. Perpetrators or criminals change their way of behaving. So you cannot create one pattern or one query that would stay all the time there. The patterns and queries are changing constantly every second, and we need to have a special tool and very easy to use tool that can let you explore the data and ask those questions in the time you need them. So it cannot be prepared. It needs to be very versatile and dynamic.
One of the things that I've always been fascinated with, Martin, is when moving from the old relational world, which is where I was from, to graph, I always thought of things in the fixed schema, right? And then when you have a new business requirement or an evolving threat, you have to change the schema and reload your data, restripe your data, everything. Here with graph, it's different. You bring it in, it infers those relationships. It's almost schemaless, right? So I think that that's really been a fascinating thing for me. Well, let's talk a little bit about Argus itself. what or just the interface of it, and then how is ArangoDB used there?
All right. So it actually follows up the challenges, because over the time and over some projects that we did, it was quite crystal clear that we need to address those challenges by creating our own product that would somehow, make things different than the previous software that we used. The product is called Argos, as I've been mentioning. Its main purpose is to uncover relationships and analyze behavior in any type of data, no matter whether these are structured, unstructured, meaning multimedia content and textual content, no matter whether these are from internal or external data sources. What we are doing, we are pulling those data, those various types of data, and store them securely in one place. Our philosophy is to make the system very easy to use, to make it some sort of self-service analytics for the investigators and data analysts. Our users, they don't have any technical skills, to be honest. They want to have the solution to be as easy to use as possible. So you don't actually need to learn the AQL or any type of querying. We are bypassing this to have some extra layer of visual interface. Now, in order to store these data from various sources in a various shape that is needed for the analysis, and in order to address those challenges like security, be able to securely store it using encryption, scale, the solution must be scalable, and so on. So we are using ArangoDB as a central storage for all the data that we have. This is like the crucial component of our solution, and it helps us to address a lot of these problems that becomes today.
And when you talk about the scale, you mentioned that before, right? The volumes, what type of volumes are we looking at here potentially?
It really varies from customer, obviously, but we are talking about billions of records and billions of data most of the time, and this can reach to petabyte scale quite easily. So we need to have a clustering options for the storage. We need to have a proper backup procedures, etc. So this is exactly where ArangoDB can shine and help us to be the reliable storage for us. And not only that, it can actually address the performance at the same time. So storing is one thing, but the performance is completely other thing. And we have a various way how we query the system.
Tell me a little bit about, and I know everyone has gone through this, the evolution to graph. What was the story before? I mean, did you try other things before with Argus? Did you have a aha moment or a realization when that you decided, hey, graph is, and Arango specifically, is the way to go there? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think we took the common road for other companies as well. We can share that experience. Of course, we tried different technology for full text search. We tried different technology for geospatial queries. We tried different technology for graph queries. And we tried to combine all the worlds together. And to be honest, it was painful. It was painful in terms of maintaining the solution, of course, cost-wise, because it was fragmented. So we wanted to simplify things, not only internally, but for our clients as well, because obviously it's always easier to have less technologies exposed to clients. So this was like the first thinking that let's try to find a solution that can combine multiple of these functionalities or features together in one software. And we were lucky. We found ArangoDB.
Yeah, no, it's a good segue to this slide that we talk a lot about. I hear so many people, and if you look at those case studies also, they're always mentioning AQL, how easy it is to learn. I guess for some reason it SQL, the old relational, over to graph, but giving you all that power seems to be easy to use is what I hear. But the thing that I always hit on is what you've just been talking about. Instead of a separate product for each one of these things, having one platform, right, that can do it all, but do it all very well. I was thinking about the investigation piece. You're going to have a scenario where you need multiple of these in one, right? Or in one piece of investigation. Is that the idea?
Definitely. There are several domains which I will be showing in a couple of seconds, where we combine basically relationships, timelines, geospatial and maps, and multimedia view. And for that, I need to address some sort of like correlated querying option. So just to give you some example, show me all people who are somehow mentioned in my case investigation reports related to certain topic, and at the same time they were seen at certain location last week. So this is where you combine geospatial, full text query, and graph traversals as well. So we cannot fragment that. It would be federated search, which would have huge impacts.
Let's keep rolling though. So I think this AQL piece is important. The federate, I love that term federated query, because that is what it is, right, Martin? If you're having to query multiple systems for different pieces of information. So let's say you had some information in geo database, some in a document database, some in a graph database, some in a full text search database. You'd have to somehow query them all separately and then integrate it on the fly. Is that?
Yeah, it's not only about that. It's, of course, each query can take different time and it might be difficult to fetch them. But the problem is the correlation, right? Because sometimes you need results from one query to somewhat enhance different query. It's a chained querying options. So therefore, it's absolute must to have it integrated.
All right, so let's look at Argos in detail. Let's look at the type of questions that we can envision here.
All right. So first thing I want to mention is that we are representing all information as basically documents or entities. And those entities are linked in various different ways. One of the entities might be person. It might be location. It might be event. It might be objects like vehicle, phone number, phone device, email address, etc., etc. Financial account, whatever can come to your mind. And there are relationships between those entities, of course. So what we have in our system for each of those entities, we have a specific profile screen where we correlate all information in one place. And we always start with relationship to other entities, because this is where Argos shines, and this is what ArangoDB is supporting heavily. So in here on the screenshot, you can see detail of Martin, myself, and I can visualize really simple relationships like family members, vehicle ownership, financial account ownership, SIM card ownership, etc. Or there might be much more complex relationships, like people who are mentioned in the same investigation cases, or people in relation to my financial transactions. So it might be counterparties. There might be even more complex queries like, who are people who are subscribing SIM cards which were plugged into the same mobile device as my SIM card was. So these are non-trivial relationships for which we provide very easy to use interface with exploration options and something that we call shortcuts. It's like predefined traversal queries that for the most common question, it's very easy to explore those more distant relationships. So some of the examples here mentioned are from law enforcement. And by the way, please be cautious about those questions, because they will get very important in the later sections of our series. So for example, who are family relatives of Martin that are on forbidden to leave the country watch list. Again, we are combining different domains. We're combining different sources in one query. Who are people using the same mobile device as Martin? Who else was driving Martin's car? Does Martin have any neighbors who were involved in a previous case investigation? Is there anything specific about drugs in notes, in investigation notes or reports related to Martin? So here we combine full text queries, entity extraction, plus graph traversals.
It occurs to me looking at this, and tell me if I'm wrong here, What is preventing someone from taking Argus and putting it on a supply chain data? Because it doesn't strike me that this is a limited to investigation, or is just that's just where you started with this?
Thank you for that point. We are always using this domain of law enforcement because we have the most experience in that. However, we designed the software to be customizable. You can change the data model very easily. We have a visual editor for that, and the structure of ArangoDB schemas will change as well. So nothing prevents you to modify or us to modify this product to various different domains. And actually, we are providing solutions on top of that one unique product or unified product. So nothing. There might be suppliers, there might be projects, that might be products, that might be invoices, entities like that, and with common relationships, and we can investigate that quite easily.
Because it strikes me as it's the workflow of your product that helps take people through any type of investigation. Could be patient data, could be anything. So this is, you're opening my eyes as we go, even after we reviewed this content before, Martin. It's pretty cool. So here, this is a different view though, right, than we just saw.
Look, the philosophy of the product is that no matter what is your domain, you're always investigating the same things. You're always looking at relationships, and those relationships are either associational or transactional, right? Either you know somebody, or you are making, I don't know, phone calls, or you're sending money, or you're visiting someplace. So for each of those types of analysis, we have a specific screen. And for example, this one, this screen where I have object A and object B, and I'm trying to find all the paths that are in between them. So this is like I'm confirming if two people know each other, or I'm trying to find out how they know each other. So are Martin and Thomas related somehow? And it will clearly show me, on each line, and I can switch to graph view, obviously, that we are correlated via different person or different watch list or different series of financial transactions, etc. But we can use this functionality not only to confirm relationship between person and person, but the other objects may be involved in that as well. So for example, one of the typical questions we are using on different projects is, in which prison facility or cell can I not place the prisoner Martin, and why? So it will say that you cannot place the guy here because there is another guy who has passed some security incident in relation to Martin.
What about timelines, the time dimension?
So this relates to the dimension of I've been talking about. We have associational and transactional data in our system. So we have some behavior, like we're making phone calls, we are visiting places, we're sending money, etc. And we need to correlate them again in one place. And those events might not be related directly to the person, but to other people that are related to the person of my investigation. So for example, I can add also information about phone calls of my family relatives or the places that my family relatives were visiting. This is the cool thing about graph, that it can take you to next dimension. We can some sort of traverse the graph and see more complex data. So in here, we have typical questions. What was Martin doing on last Monday morning, and with whom? What is the most active day for phone calls of Martin? We have something that we call pattern of life, or some statistical view, which hour of a day and day of a week are the most active for a certain type of activity. And it gives you the anomaly detection and sort of indication when the person is the most active. We have a list of counterparties sorted by frequencies. So you can immediately spot who is the most common phone number or person you are interacting with. You can focus only on that mutual interactions. Again, specific screen for certain type of investigation.
And in just a minute, we're going to see how all this ties into the LLMs and the RAG and all those cool concepts. The geo is powerful. I know that because we've been talking about it all along. This is more applicable, but maybe not just to investigations. Retail, I could see, is a big thing here as well.
We can visualize anything on the map. We can visualize information that are not necessarily directly linked to that person, but they may be linked in more complex relationship. You see, so for example, I can spot locations of SIM cards that were plugged into the same phone device as my SIM cards, and I can put them on the map very easily. So this is something that would take you some time as the investigator to somehow collect, visualize separately, and then correlate it in your head. Our system is ready for this. But there might be, again, some easier queries like, where was Martin last Monday morning? Where was Martin's vehicle spotted last week? So it might be objects related to Martin, again, put it into the map, sorted by time. But we have something that we call geocorrelation as well. So who are people that were in the same location as Martin at the same or overlapping time for a certain duration? Often this is called co-travelers. So this is how we are using ArangoDB computational power in terms of evaluating geospatial data, that we can correlate these data together. So very cool way how to use AQLs and combine them together.
Now we're getting into the Mission Impossible stuff. I think about all the handprints and the face recognition and now they can look at your gait, right? Are you guys doing that kind of stuff here? Or?
The future is here. Yeah, so Corey, what I've shown so far is like the basis, the core, right? This is the basic stuff. And we expand on that because I've mentioned we are trying to process unstructured content as well. And then this includes images, and video files. And in order to spot people in those, we need to have biometric management. So we upload face images of each person into the system as a reference database. Of course, everything is protected by the security. But once we analyze incoming video files or image files, there's this pipeline that uses face recognition, which is embedded inside the system, compares the vector, and finds the person in that multimedia. So this has a very cool impact for the analyst, because at the person profile page, you can immediately spot in which video files or in which images the person was seen. So again, it can be represented as a question. So in which time sequences of that specific video Martin was recognized? And you can actually see other people that are spotted there as well. So we know that these two people met, and this is running 24/7. It doesn't need any manual efforts. It is automatic.
If I walk into a Target store, is it going to find me and say, oh, look, he's here in this section. Let me send him a text and move him over to this section?
The security is priority for us. But there are certain situations where this might be very helpful. Of course, we are using face recognition, for example, in football stadiums to avoid entrance of guys that should not be there because they have a ban. So, for example, this is one of the examples of how we can use this. But of course, law enforcement is heavily using this technology.
Now, we've talked about analyzing data.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly, before we get to the LLM stuff, tell me about how you can actually add information with Argos into the graph. Is that right?
That's correct. And this is actually how we are using AI in terms of creating content. So we are analyzing videos, images, audio for speaker identification, and textual documents for entity extraction. And we are feeding them into the graph so they can enhance the already existed structured data. And this is a very cool thing because we can build a network chart like this that we can connect two people by the fact that they were seen in the same multimedia file. For example, picture or camera recording or CCTV recording.
Very cool. All right, now let's get to where we're evolving this. This is your existing interface, but we're not stopping there. You're not stopping there. The whole idea of Argos and Graph Hunter is really to explore this piece.
Until some time ago, I was quite happy with the way how we are supporting our end users. I thought it's very easy to use, but we want to make it even better. And we thought, how to make it even better and more easier for our users. And this comes to the fact that I wrote the questions on the previous slides. So what is the best way to ask the system? With the natural question, right? So imagine we have some visual editor for AQL queries, okay? We don't expose the technical stuff to end users. We have a very nice drag and drop interface where you can build the queries like this, like what females live in Prague and were involved in incident of kidnapping of another person in the past 2 years, etc. What males of Czech nationality older than 40 years are in evidence as extremists and members of a known criminal group. So these types of questions, but still it's even easier to write it down. So this was eye-opener for us, and we wanted to have it in the system as soon as possible.
And this is where it all comes together. And, you know, ArangoDB, we've got examples of this with our AQL LLM integration, but this is on another level here. What is this a buzzword though? We hear there's so much noise around this AI LLM, but for you, it's real, right? It's getting really real with Argos.
So some AI renaissance period is happening right now. Everybody is talking about large language models, and most famously ChatGPT, of course. And this is taken as the holy grail of the data analytics and all the work. You know, people, even from the technical side, people are saying, cool, this is the technology that will replace everything that was here till the day, right? People are overly hyped for this. Of course, there are some like people aspect that somebody's saying, we don't need analysts, we don't need investigators anymore. You know, the technology is here to solve everything automatically. Yeah, this is nice. However, we feel there are some important limitations and risk we need to take into account and address in our solution, because nothing is that easy as it sounds for the first year.
And that's where we transition to really, why not? We hear about ChatGPT, and this links into the whole RAG piece, which we'll get to, but there's a lot of reasons not to use just that, right?
That's correct. So the first one is to understand the large language models, you know, in the first place, is that they are pre-trained with certain types of data, and there is some implicit knowledge in there. And sometimes it's really hard to change this implicit knowledge and to update the information. This comes also with the risk of being the model can be biased somehow. Okay? It depends on the data that it has been trained on. So this is something we need to really address and we need to control. Second thing is, especially in the investigation field, not all information in the data model, in the large language models, is up to date. And we need to have the up-to-date information. They may change in a second. And this may be related to security, to metadata of the investigated subjects and the relationships and so on. Also, we have like validity of the cases. There must be some time for which the information is actually searchable and available for the investigators. So this is another type of aspect that we need to take care of. Of course, if the model is missing the data, it will misguide you in the investigation. And we need to make sure that the core trusted, vetted data are always there to answer your questions. The thing is that those models are predictive models. It is predicting basically the next word that is coming after the previous one based on the context. And sometimes it can hallucinate, it can make up things. And this is something that you definitely don't want in the investigation analytical tool. It must be really trusted by the end users, and it must provide the source of information always. And it must be using Admiralty code. We need to evaluate if the information is trusted or not. So this is like the key aspect. And of course, the security. If you want the best model, best large language model available, you need to go into commercial companies. This is the fact. You know, that there is no power in the small companies that they can create their own models in that level of completeness and that level of knowledge. So this is something that is absolutely no-go for us. We need to have the models to be running on premise, and we need to keep the security of the data.
And this brings it all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Large language models on the left alone, not good enough. ArangoDB or a knowledge graph doesn't have that natural language capability out of the box. You bring it together and you have what you're building. Yeah?
Absolutely correct. On one hand, we have the understanding of the text and easy representation of structured data as natural language. On the other hand, there is some lack of knowledge, and there are, let's say, not good up-to-date quality information in the large language models. On the other hand, ArangoDB is providing a really precise answers for precise questions, but they are more technical. You need to have some interface to that. And the current interface is not supporting the questions like I've been showing, but rather either the visual editor or AQL language. And our job is to put the two worlds together to have the question answering engine, basically. And we have either knowledge graph queries or document content queries. So not only we can query the ArangoDB knowledge graph, but we can also query the content of the uploaded documents at once, and we can correlate them together. Not only the querying part is important, we have also the writing assistant, so we can create new reports based on the data. We can translate data into different language. We can summarize the text and summarize the relationship using the large language models. But we are making sure there is no hallucination, there is no making up things, there is propagating security, because we need to be sure that for some person logged into our system, different data are available, and we need to address that. Yeah, maybe let me take you one step back. So we said to ourselves, okay, we want to have large language model interact with ArangoDB. Now, how we will do this? And we have two options. We had either to use fine-tuning and basically embed the knowledge inside the large language model, put the data there, but we soon found out that this is a no-go. It's good if you have some like internal processes, some directives or methods of investigation. This is okay. The know-how about investigation is fine, but not the data. We need to have the data stored securely and provided based on the certain rules and certain policies. So the other option then to use the fine-tuning was retrieval augmented generation. And basically what we are doing, we are putting some logic in between the user and the ArangoDB question engine. So what large language model is doing for us, it is taking the question, we are feeding it with some instructions, and it is constructing queries to the Arango engine. We are taking this query results back, and we are representing them as natural text. But we can represent the results not only as textual response, but also in the current application as visualizations, as different widgets, etc. So it is natural extension of our application, not the replacement. And this is a very cool thing because sometimes it's easier to see the data in a graph. Sometimes it's easier to see the timeline chart. Sometimes it's better to use the tables to represent the data. Sometimes it's better text. And sometimes you can, of course, continue the conversation in a textual way and again, represent the data in various different ways.
You know, as we get more into the technology here, folks, please do submit your questions. Any questions you have on how this is built. We'll also show in a moment a more detailed representation of this. But no, I'm always fascinated by how this question is translated into a query. And then the question is, how much work does that have to be done there? It looks like you're abstracting a lot of that and automating a lot of that. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, so for the end user, the impact will be still like he's using ChatGPT. There is nothing else. But the magic, underneath in the background is quite huge. We have a set of components there that makes this happen. There are some feedback loops. There are some set of agents that we can use to translate the text into the AQL and going back, evaluate the policies, log everything into audit, make sure that logged in people can see only those relevant information. So this is somehow simplified architecture. For some people, it may not be that simple, but it is giving you the idea that we will explore in the next episodes. of this series. But in the beginning, we have Argos web user interface, where you can just enter the information in a textual way. We're sending this to large language model, and this large language model is customized so it can bring us the prompt queries from Arango using RAG business logic and our APIs, which include also auditing, security evaluation, utilizing some query templates, and applying some model typing and restrictions. So we need to make sure that the answers for the questions are the same for all users that are asking those questions. So we need to minimize the diversity of the results, of the responses of the system. And we are making sure that in this business layer. And from that point, we are building queries to Arango using either full text, AQL, vector similarity, etc. Arango is returning us data. And again, we are providing this via API, returning it back to large language model, enhancing it with conversational history, and replying this response to user in a natural language.
So it looks to me like the creation of these query templates is critical piece here. Is that right? Because the more templates you have, the more out of the box flexibility you have. Is that right? Or
actually, there might be some predefined templates for the most obvious questions, but we can create the templates straight away. So it's more like a representation of AQL in a pseudo syntax, in a simplified syntax that the large language models is doing. And it can answer you any type of question that I've been showing you actually in those previous slides. So
I don't need to build new Argos functionality for every new question. I can put the question in that Argos hasn't even thought of yet, and it will generate the response like that. Is that correct?
Exactly. No matter what is your domain, what is your domain, no matter what kind of entities and links do you have there, no matter what the question is, whether it's simple question like one hop question or very complex chained question, you can answer at anything. And we are making sure in this RAG section that it's matching the model and it's replying based on the data.
What about this term model training that I keep hearing about with this? Do you have to do a lot of that? Or once you do it, it's ready to go?
This is exactly what I've been explaining. Like, we had two options: either fine tune the model, so retrain or add some additional training capacity to the model, or use retrieval augmented generation, use foundational models as they are, and not to do any retrainings, and just leverage the textual representation of that.
So that's how you can ask any question, because you don't have to do all that training every time. Is that it?
Correct. It's not cost effective, to be honest, retrain the model. The fine tuning is not, when you have large customers and you have quite static data, fine tuning is fine. But once your data model is dynamic, once the content changes all the time, this is a no-go scenario for us.
So is it a true statement? And I want to dig into this for the audience. In most cases, people trying to build this type of application are going to have to use that model training approach. You're making that obsolete in a way.
Yes, for data querying, yes. We're trying to make the system as dynamic as possible, as tailored to the current data that the customer have.
Let's look and give you a sneak peek, folks, of what you're going to see in coming episodes. We're going to peel back the onion. But Martin, show us, and I know it's small, show us how this language piece will work in Argos right here.
Purposely small, because we just wanted to sneak peek, to show you some sneak peek of what is coming in the next episodes. And this is like embedding of the virtual assistant directly in our redesigned user interface. So we are working on redesigning to provide even fancier user experience. And we will demonstrate you the reliable retrieval augmented generation engine on top of ArangoDB. Now, it is context-aware document question and answering as well. So not only querying the Arango, but being able to communicate about the content of the documents. There are two aspects of this. So first of all, it is enhancement of the current application by adding some panel on the right section, which is accessible anytime during the application. it has the same sort of feeling as the traditional chatbots available on the market. So, ChatGPT in this style of communication, or Copilot, Claude, etc. And you're asking questions in a natural way, like typing text, but it's providing you answers not only in the textual format, but it's using various widgets in chat response to give you those answers. And the key thing is that those widgets representing results are linked to the actual application. So for example, if you ask, show me all males older than 50 years, born in Prague, which were criminally punished for some type of bribery or whatever. This is like the AQL query that we are running on background. We are returning the results, and we may return the results in a way that they are displayed in network chart, in a table, or in a textual way. And you can continue the conversation about those data because it contains contextual history. So that's the cool thing. You continue over and over, ask questions about all the data. So there are two modes. Either you will stick with those chat way, or you can continue using the application in the current way. And then for certain aspects, you can use it to enhance the information displayed, like translate me this to another language, or generate me summary for that type of information displayed on the page.
And when we think about, this is so cool, when we think about the multi-model piece, you could go from this and then drill into a document that shows you all the detail, all the account detail, all the detail of a location. You wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't have the JSON support built in. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, we are trying to represent the data as they are stored in ArangoDB, and we are using JSON as the representation of all the metadata for objects and relationships. So in general, yes. And we have each of the information that is displayed in the results linked to its original source. So we know exactly the type of query that is used to retrieve those results based on the user question. And we know exactly what objects are matching those queries. And we can visualize them, for example, on a separate page, like profile page. I've been showing you the whole presentation.
This is so cool. So what we're going to be doing, we showed you a sneak peek. What we're going to be doing in the next episode is really peeling back the onion on what is the design principles of this. How does it actually work under the covers? The episode after that will be the user experience, right? So we're going to continually uncover pieces of Argos and show you the journey that Martin and Cogniware have gone on. But we have a few minutes for questions. I don't see any open questions. It seems like this is, but everyone has stuck around here, so it looks like this is really interesting to folks. If you have a question, please put it into the Q&A, and we will do that. I know that you had a couple benefits here. I mean, if I was looking at it, the whole notion of LLM agnostic, talk about that as we wrap up. Why is that so important here for this particular piece?
I don't know, but you're all probably tech enthusiasts, and you are following all the news that is happening in the AI world. And literally, new models are coming every day in different quality. So we build a solution so it's really independent on the actual model. We don't want to rely on any specific one. And our preferred ones are the open models, open weight models, of course, but nothing prevents us to use any model there is available. So, but the solution is done in a way that we are not using pre-trained knowledge of that model, but we are using the linguistic capabilities of that model to represent the structured data in an unstructured way, and to understand the intents and the context of that query to translate it into AQL.
Yeah.
So
the other thing,
yeah.
The other thing that I saw, that if you guys go back to our last webinar, which is on our website, very interesting. The cost of doing GraphRag is a fraction. There was one query where they were using a vector store, Martin, where it was $50 to do that one query because they had to load everything into memory into a vector store. Whereas with GraphRag, it was 27 cents to do that. Does that surprise you to hear that difference in cost?
Yeah, of course. We're trying to focus on cost-effective solutions for our clients. At the same time, for some domains, people would argue that they need to know the answers no matter the costs. However, it's not only about that. It's about the precision, the accuracy, and the trust about those results. And this can be achieved only with the reliable RAG functionality that is taking the vetted data and really ensured data.
Well, look, this has been an incredible session. I've learned a lot even after the third time going through it, Martin. So thank you so much. We have a question here. Finally, what is the banking investigation use case? I think I could answer that, where you could have accounts and people and fraud and transactions represented here, Martin, right? In the exact same way with Argos even.
Yeah, it can be applied in various different scenarios, from risk scoring and know your customer and transaction monitoring and financial investigation on top of suspicious transactions. So this is really like a difficult question because there are so many different small use cases in banking sector that can be answered with this. But I guess the most obvious one is know your customer and trying to score the clients and make sure that they are authorized to receive certain products, or they might receive some product based on recommendation.
Yeah. Well, look, like I said, incredible session, Martin. Thank you so much, Marketa, as well. We will have the next episode of Graph Hunter Frameworks of the Mind on June 13th. We will look into, again, peel back the onion on Argos, the whole genesis of it, the architecture, the specifics. We'll get probably a little more technical as we go, I think, right, Martin? But this has been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all attendees for sticking around for the entire presentation. That's always wonderful to see. And we will see you all, that's right, on the next episode of Graph Hunter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.